On Sunday, alleged Democrat Joe Manchin delivered the final nail in the coffin for Joe Biden's domestic spending agenda. And to pour a little salt on the wound, he just happened to do it on Fox News. Take a look.
This is a no on this legislation. I have tried everything I know to do.
Well, it's a no. It's a no. Now, again, that was in response to Bret Baier asking if it meant that he was done with negotiation. And so, there you go. Now, I guess we should probably get into his reasoning about this, or at least what he claims is his reasoning for killing, again, Joe Biden, President Biden's, the Democratic president's agenda. Here it is.
Well, Brett, this is a mammoth piece of legislation, and I had my reservations from the beginning when I heard about it 5.5 months ago, and I've been working diligently. I've done everything humanly possible. And my concerns I had, and I still have these concerns, and where I'm at right now, the inflation that I was concerned about, it's not transitory, it's real, it's harming every West Virginian. It's making it almost difficult for them to continue to go to their jobs, the cost of gasoline, the cost of groceries, the cost of utility bills, all of these things are hitting in every aspect of their life. And you start looking at, then you have the debt that we're carrying at $29 trillion. And you have also the geopolitical unrest that we have. You have the COVID variant. And that is wreaking havoc again. People are concerned. I've been with my family. I know everyone's concerned. So when you have these things coming at you the way they are right now, I've always said this, Brett, if I can't go home and explain it to the people of West Virginia, I can't vote for it. And I cannot vote to continue with this piece of legislation. I just can't. I've tried everything humanly possible. I can't get there.
You just can't get there. Because he would have to go back to explain to the people of West Virginia why he couldn't support the bill. Or I'm sorry, if he passed it, if he had supported it, he'd have to go back to the people of West Virginia to explain it. But here's the thing. He's going to have to go back to the people of West Virginia and explain why he doesn't support it, because it is filled with very popular provisions for the people of West Virginia. In fact, here's a poll. This is back in August, where you had a mass majority of likely voters in West Virginia, 68%, that supported not the $2 trillion, not the pared down version, but the $3.5 trillion. The bigger bill. And now he says, I'm so worried about the debt. I'm so worried about the deficit. I have to explain all of this, why we're spending so much on the government, why the government's spending so much money. I got to explain to the people of West Virginia we're so fiscally conservative. Whereas, would you look at that? Would you look at that? Even a majority of Republicans, 56%, supported this bill. Independents, 64%. Democrats, 90%. 90. He's supposed to be a Democrat, but he's not. He's not. No, the people that he would have to explain to are the donors, because that's who he works for. He works for the donors. He works for the corporations. But you understand, Jeff, he's worked so very, very hard. He's done everything humanly possible to try to work with the bill, even though he's actually had to do nothing, because every single time anybody's approached him, it's like, Joe Manchin, what do you want? Joe Manchin, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? We'll give you everything you want. You wanted to pare it back? Okay, we'll get rid of this. We'll pare that down. We'll reduce the costs. We'll do this. We'll do that. We'll take out tax increases from the rich. Yes, we'll get rid of those. We didn't like those anyway, because we serve the corporations. We're just going to get rid of all of that stuff that you didn't like, or pare it back so massively. A child tax credit, you want to get rid of the child tax credit too? Well, I don't know about that. Again, he has done everything in his power to water the thing down, to make sure the American people, his constituents in West Virginia, do not get paid leave, do not get child care, that older people, seniors, do not get hearing, vision, and dental care, that we don't invest in clean, renewable energy to get us off more expensive coal and Saudi oil. Now, of course, there's definitely a reason he didn't like that provision at all. No, save it. And the idea that the American people wouldn't benefit from this during COVID and inflation, and that's what the excuse. oh, COVID, we got to focus on inflation. We got to focus on COVID. I'm not saying we don't, but here's the thing. Making healthcare more affordable during a pandemic, wouldn't that make sense? Wouldn't that make sense? Wouldn't that make people's lives a little bit easier? Wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? What about direct checks for families with children using their child tax credit? That's one thing that he doesn't like, that he didn't want, that he opposed. Oh, and I've got a great quote on that one in another segment, saying that none of that would help families during a time of inflation and COVID is absolutely ridiculous, super ridiculous. These are exactly the types of investment policies that the American people need right now. But no, Joe Manchin, I don't want you to have those things. Joe Manchin and the Republican Party, obviously, because look, here's the thing. So I know immediately when this happens, you get the Democrat brigade that comes out and is like, oh, 50 Republicans oppose this, right? It's not Democrats' fault. Well, Joe Manchin is a swing vote. Joe Manchin is supposed to be a Democrat. He's the one vote that it hinged on for it to go through budget reconciliation. Yeah, and it's pretty much a given that Republicans are going to block everything that actually helps the average American, unless, of course, they're in power and the beloved stock market falls. Then they're going to do everything that they can, which is what happened during the Trump administration, when in reality, you got $1,400 checks and unemployment benefits. Yes, a lot of that stuff was pushed, by the way, by Bernie Sanders and the Democratic minority. The fact of the matter is, at this point, voters can look at what each party has done. And they can see that, oh, look, the Republicans, again, because of the stock markets and everything like that, and the election that was coming up, actually ended up doing more for you, at least in those regards. They did a bunch of horrible, horrible shit as well, and tons of upward wealth redistribution to the rich and corporations and their donors than the Democrats have. And a lot of that is a result of people like Joe Manchin, who went and blocked everything. And of course, again, you can blame the Republicans, because the Republicans, they know, at least they know enough to give something out, to throw a bone to the poor once in a while also giving most of it to the rich. And then, of course, doing horrible, horrible social things. So social policies. But as I said, the Republicans, Joe Manchin sided with the Republicans. Joe Manchin sided with Mitch McConnell. They couldn't have asked for a better ally than Joe Manchin, who, I need to remind you, Manchin is not a moderate. Manchin is a corporatist. When it came to handing out billions of dollars in corporate welfare with the bipartisan infrastructure bill, he was 100% on board. In fact, corporations loved the bipartisan infrastructure bill because it had lots of handouts to fossil fuels, especially. And yes, there were good things in it. Obviously, rebuilding roads and bridges is good. Broadband upgrades, that's good. Public transit, investments in that's good. But again, there's also privatization of public assets, which is not good. That means toll booths. That means more for you. Not only do you pay for it through your taxes, but you also end up paying more because, now you got to pay a corporation to use a road that you funded. They love that, though. They love that. And there's the other thing, right? Again, the bipartisan infrastructure bill did not raise taxes in the rich, meaning that it would actually add to the deficit. I thought Joe Manchin cared so much about the deficit. No, it turns out, according to the CBO, it adds about $350 billion into the deficit. Where was Joe Manchin then? Where's Joe Manchin then? Now, it also repurposed a lot of COVID money. But Joe Manchin, of course, totally fine with all of that. Because guess what? This spending will go to government contractors, corporations. What was left out of this, the bipartisan bill, that he loved so much, was raising the wages of home health care workers who don't get paid enough. Long-term services for Medicaid, workforce development, improved VA hospitals, and of course, corporate tax hikes, which again, Joe Manchin is not interested in, because he loves low taxes on corporations. They all do to an extent. I mean, Joe Biden, for example, he's like, oh, let's bring the corporate tax rate up to 28%, which is actually lower than the Obama rate, which had been lowered from other presidents still. Now, of course, again, some of that stuff might have been added to Build Back Better. I mean, at least that was the promise, right? We'll just take out of this one, put it back into Build Back Better and pass it as a different bill. But we'll couple them together to make sure both of them get passed. And what happened? It got decoupled, and here we go. We ended up getting the bipartisan corporate bill, and now nothing. No Build Back Better. Another example of how Joe Manchin doesn't care about fiscal responsibility. He voted to pass a $768 billion National Defense Authorization Act bill. That's additional money to the military. That's more than double the $3.5 trillion infrastructure compromise. How much, again, remember, this is all over 10 years. The Pentagon gets $768 billion every single year. $7 trillion for the next 10 years. Well, actually more so. About 9 when you actually add in all the numbers. It's over $9 trillion. Now, whereas a $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill, that's $350 billion a year. What are we spending more money on? What seems to be our priorities here? Oh, right. Bombing brown people, as opposed to actually taking care of Americans, working class people. No. We got to take care of the defense industry executives. That's what we have to do. Ah, yes, their profit margin. None of that money really goes to the troops. Not that much of it. No, it goes into building bombs and buying planes and tanks that we don't need. Why do we even need them? We're out of Afghanistan. We just ended another war. Joe Biden ended a war in Afghanistan. Suddenly, for some reason, we need more money because they can't help themselves. They just keep shoveling more and more money towards the Pentagon. What a waste. What an absolute waste. And again, this is because corporations have captured our government. This is because of money in the politics. All right? Now, Manchin's a great example of how we live under corporate rule. All right? Again, Joe Manchin makes his money, a lot of money, from coal companies he founded and that he put his son to run. The combined stock in those companies nets him over $4.5 million in income since 2011. Build Back Better actually had some provisions in there to deal with climate change that might actually threaten his income. Investing in renewables threatens his personal finances. And so if he were to support Build Back Better, well, then he would have been hurting himself because it's a conflict of interest. And not only that, but he would have also upset his donors. The Chamber of Commerce, for example, would stop funding his political campaigns. Republicans would stop funding his campaigns, his political campaigns. Republican donors, I should say. Because guess what? They all hate the things that help you. What they want is for you to be poor and desperate so you'll work for their scraps without any complaint. Plus, they don't want you to go raising their taxes by a tiny little bit because maybe then they wouldn't be able to get another yacht. Joe Manchin works for them, not for you, and also works for himself. Know him for what he is. He is a representation of the system that is keeping you down, that is crushing you. And instead of just trying to replace him, which again is a good idea, but how about instead of just replacing him with who knows what'll come next? Why don't we replace the system? Get the money out of politics. That is the only way to really solve this problem, the problem of the Joe Manchins of the world. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.